Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're going to step inside the mind's very own medicine cabinet. Yep, we're taking a high-yield tour of the brain's pharmacy to really understand some of the most important medications in mental health. So, let's get right into it.
So, have you ever wondered what's really inside a psychiatrist's toolkit? Well, today we're pulling back that curtain. We're going to explore the key medications that are used to treat depression and stabilize mood, and we're going to focus on the simple, absolutely crucial details that you really need to know.
I want you to think of this as a high-speed tour of a very, very specialized pharmacy. We're going to walk the aisles together, we'll look at the most prescribed items on the shelves, and we'll learn how to read the most important warnings on those labels. You ready? Let's dive in.
Okay, our first stop is, you guessed it, the busiest section in the whole place, the antidepressant aisles. These are so often the frontline treatments, not just for depression, but for a whole range of other conditions too.
First up, we've got the SSRIs. You've probably heard of these by names like fluoxetine or sertraline. The best way to think of them is as serotonin gatekeepers. See, they don't actually create more of this key mood messenger, but they very cleverly keep more of it hanging around for your brain to use.
Now, with any of these, it's all about a balance, right? So on one side, you've got common side effects, things like nausea or insomnia. But on the other side, you have the true danger signs of something called serotonin syndrome. We're talking high fever, agitation, and hyperreflexia. That's just a fancy word for rigid, overactive reflexes. And these are signs of a medical emergency.
And that brings us to a foundational rule for SSRIs, one you absolutely cannot forget. You must taper them slowly. If you just stop abruptly, it can lead to something called discontinuation syndrome, which feels absolutely awful and can be really confusing if you don't know what's happening.
Okay, moving to the next shelf over, we find the SNRIs, like venlafaxine. And the key difference here? It's actually pretty simple. While SSRIs focus only on serotonin, SNRIs work on two chemical messengers, serotonin and norepinephrine. You can kind of think of it as a two-for-one deal for your brain.
Now, because of that extra work on norepinephrine, there is one vital thing to remember for SNRIs. You have to monitor blood pressure. That second messenger can sometimes push your blood pressure up, so it's an absolutely key safety check.
All right, let's head a little deeper into our pharmacy now, over to the aisles with some of the more specialized tools. You know, these aren't always the first choice, but they are so crucial for some very specific jobs.
First, we've got the tricyclics, or TCAs. You might know amitriptyline. These are kind of like the old guard. I mean, they've been around for a very long time, and they're really effective, but they come with a very distinct set of side effects.
And you know what? There's a perfect way to remember those side effects. Just think Palm Springs. Why? Because everything gets dry. We're talking dry mouth, blurred vision, constipation, and even trouble urinating. It's a really memorable and accurate way to keep it straight.
Now, for the MAOIs. These things are incredibly powerful. They work completely differently by blocking the enzyme that cleans up neurotransmitters. This makes them super effective, but also very, very picky.
And when I say picky, I mean this is non-negotiable. If you're in an MAOI, you simply cannot eat foods that are high in a substance called tyramine, like the ones you see right here. Mixing them can cause a hypertensive crisis, which is a sudden, dangerously high spike in blood pressure. This isn't a friendly suggestion. It is a strict, life-saving rule. And finally, in this aisle we've got bupropion, which is a truly atypical option. And the trade-off with this one is really clear. On the plus side, it doesn't cause the sexual side effects that are so common with SSRIs. But the major downside? It lowers the seizure threshold, which makes it a really bad choice for anyone with a seizure disorder or even certain eating disorders.
Okay, let's leave the antidepressant aisles behind and walk over to a completely different part of the pharmacy, the mood stabilizing counter. See, the goal here isn't just about lifting mood, it's about creating stability and preventing those extreme highs and lows.
I want you to just look at these numbers for a second. 0.6 to 1.2. That is the therapeutic range for lithium, the classic mood stabilizer. And let me tell you, that window is incredibly narrow. A little bit below, and it might not work. A little bit above, and it becomes toxic. It's a real balancing act.
So being on lithium means you're living by its rules. You absolutely need to know the signs of toxicity, things like a coarse tremor or confusion. You also have to stay hydrated, and you have to avoid NSAID pain relievers, like ibuprofen, because they can dangerously raise your lithium levels.
But hey, lithium isn't the only player in the game. These other stabilizers each have their own critical risk to watch out for. For example, valproic acid can be tough on the liver, which is why liver function tests are so important. Carbamazepine can cause something called agranulocytosis, a dangerous drop in white blood cells, so blood counts get checked regularly. And lamotrigine, well, lamotrigine has a rare but life-threatening risk that we absolutely need to talk about on its own.
This is it. This is the single most important takeaway for lamotrigine. Any rash, I don't care how small it looks, could be the start of a severe, potentially fatal condition called Stevens-Johnson syndrome. The rule is simple and it's absolute. You see a rash, you stop the medication, and you call the doctor immediately.
All right, as we finish up our tour, let's stop at the front counter for the pharmacist's final warnings. Think of these as the universal rules of the road that apply to nearly everything we've looked at today.
You know, it all really boils down to 3 core ideas. First, always know the specific danger signs for your medication, whether that's serotonin syndrome or a rash. Second, always remember to taper off slowly and never stop abruptly. And finally, view regular monitoring, like blood tests or blood pressure checks, as an essential part of the partnership you have with your doctor.
So we've seen this wide array of tools, right? Each one with its own specific target, its own benefits, and its own pretty serious risks. And it all leads to this fascinating question. With such specialized tools, just how close are we to truly personalized mental health care? To finding that perfect medication for each person's unique brain chemistry? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me.